5 12 2024 تمت السيطرة على القضيب الهندسي من قبل أفراد لواء صقور جرابلس.
The Idlib rebels have taken control of Syria's third-largest city, Hama. The city lost by Assad has a population of 1 million. Islamist-led rebel forces captured the central Syrian city of Hama on Thursday, overrunning forces loyal to President Bashar al-Assad only days after capturing Aleppo in a lightning offensive. The rebels, led by the Islamist group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, stormed the city and, after fierce fighting, claimed to have seized its prison and released inmates. After a night of violent clashes, the rebels entered Hama from several sides and were engaged in street fighting with Assad's forces, said the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights War Monitor. By early Thursday afternoon, Syria's army admitted it had lost control of the strategically located city seen as crucial in its efforts to protect the capital and seat of power, Damascus. The fall of Hama came despite shelling and strikes carried out by the Syrian and Russian air forces, as reported by state media late Wednesday. Key to the rebels' successes since the start of the offensive last week was the takeover of Aleppo, which in more than a decade of war had never entirely fallen out of government hands. Key to the rebels' successes since the start of the offensive last week was the takeover of Aleppo, which in more than a decade of war had never entirely fallen out of government hands. A column of Russian armed forces equipment is retreating through the Kurdish-controlled city of Ain Issa towards the Tabqa airfield, northeast of Aleppo. As Syrian rebels continue their swift advances, Russian-backed forces and Syrian soldiers are reportedly retreating under significant pressure. The pace and coordination of the rebel offensive, particularly in the Hama region, have overwhelmed regime defenses. Accounts suggest that Russian forces are withdrawing from forward positions to avoid direct engagements, relying instead on airstrikes to slow rebel momentum. This retreat highlights critical vulnerabilities, including stretched supply lines and low morale among Assad's troops. Rebels have reportedly captured key towns and checkpoints, forcing regime forces into hasty withdrawals to avoid encirclement. And rebels advanced more in Hama province by capturing the city of Rastan. This is reportedly the Assad regime's military equipment captured by the rebels in Rastan. The two main rebel groups in Syria, Islamic rebels from Idlib and Turkish-backed secular rebels, have captured significant amounts of equipment from Syrian forces.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
Russian aircraft carried out airstrikes on the Rastan bridge in an attempt to stop the rebel advance towards Homs. And the reality is that Russians and their allies are taking a beating in Syria right now. Spearheading the rebel alliance is HTS, which is rooted in Syria's al-Qaeda branch. HTS has had a lot of time and space and resources to organize itself and to prepare for this, said analyst Sam Heller of the US-based Century Foundation think tank. How the fighting unfolds now depends on whether the Syrian government can regain its footing, Heller said. Opposition forces currently pushing south will likely get stuck somewhere in Syria's center when they run into really motivated and intractable loyalist resistance, he said. At that point, it will be a question of whether Damascus has the means to mount the type of scorched earth counteroffensive I assume it would like to execute. Nevertheless, the situation now depends on the ability of Syrian and Russian forces to regroup and launch a counteroffensive, as well as on support from Iranian-backed forces from Iraq and Iran. Hezbollah, however, is no longer a factor, having been effectively destroyed by Israeli military actions. Russian military bloggers are desperate. Such a shame the Wagner is no more to help in Syria. The Syrian army has surrendered another major city. In 2 weeks, the bearded Wahhabi terrorists were able to capture 2 major cities and almost half of the country. The Syrian army seems to be in no hurry to fight. Our planes continue to cover the columns of bearded men, but for some reason, there are so many of them. How shocked Evgeny Viktorovich and Dmitry Valerievich would be now. If the musicians had been there and had given commands to the Syrian army, maybe this would not have happened. But this is all guesswork. Wahhabis are subject to destruction. Footage shows the Russian airstrikes in Aleppo, Syria that indiscriminately killed dozens. And we can have a comedy hour here also. Syrian rebels try to master control of captured Mi-8 helicopter by watching videos from the internet. Another video from the airfield in Aleppo, where the Syrian army left its faulty MiG-23s. Also in the frame, the rebels demonstrate another T-55 and a BMP-1. Of particular interest is the rare IL-28. If the reports that Asad's forces have retreated from Hama, handing it the rebels, are true, they will be retreating to mount a last stand at Homs. If the rebels capture the Homs area, it is all over for Asad. His Alawite coastal heartland and all the ports, circled in pink, will be cut off from the capital Damascus. Iran would lose access to all but 2 border crossings into Lebanon, mountain passes that Israel can and routinely does control via airstrikes. The Kurds are also pushing into Deir az-Zor, circled in yellow, and if they succeed, Iran will lose its primary supply route to Hezbollah. They will be forced to run the gauntlet across the Syrian desert within easy reach of US bases. The best case for Assad is that his poorly paid troops can hold Homs, allowing him to keep a rump state, the blue circled area. If he can't, expect huge bloodletting as the hated Alawites reap the whirlwind of their 50 years of oppression of all the other groups. The future of Hezbollah, Lebanon, and Assad depend on what happens in Homs. For Israel, the safest result is probably that Assad holds the blue-circled area in his hugely weakened state, while the Kurds take enough strongpoints in the desert to cut the Iran-Lebanon routes, or to funnel them such they become easy pickings and unsustainable. If the rebels capture Homs province, it would cut off critical land routes between Damascus and the Russian naval base in Tartus, effectively isolating the port. Tartus is essential for Russia's military operations in Syria, serving as a logistics hub and a symbol of its influence in the region. Without secure access, Russian forces would face severe operational constraints, potentially forcing them to abandon their position in Syria. This would mark a significant blow to Russia's regional strategy, undermining its ability to project power in the Middle East and protect its interests in the Mediterranean.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you want to support Warthog Defense, please become our member and get early access to new videos, exclusive members-only videos, and become administrator in comment section. The membership link is in the description.
Every day. We had a guy last week at 6 rescues in 6 days. You know, he's doing the job every day.